Today you might not be having what you desired of. You might be in losses of your business. You might be a failure in your studies. You might be a loser in your life, profession, education. Yet you can still delight. Psalm 16 answers this question. It tells what man really delights in. Psalm 16. What do you delight in? Verse 1. David says, I put my trust in you. Now, this is a psalm of delight, and we find no trials and tribulation in this psalm. David is simply delighting in Lord. We might not be having anything, but let's delight in Lord because He has given us one more day to live. Verse 2. My goodness is nothing apart from you. David dedicates all his goodness to God and says, I have no good beyond God. It is human tendency that we credit ourselves when we do something good, forgetting God. But a true Christian credits God for His goodness. Verses 3-4. Saints on earth are excellent ones. Now these are God's people who walk like Christ, who talk like Christ, who embrace Christ in their life and set an example to many, and they are excellent ones. Let's delight in God's people and dwell with them. Verses 5-6. You maintain my lot, fallen me to pleasant places. Now this is God's providence. God in His providence knows what to give and what not to give to a believer. But problems arise when people try to make their own plans and result in failure. Failures are lessons for believers that they are not maintaining God's lines but trying their own plans. If you want to delight in God, then delight in His providence. Verses 7-10. Now these are the words of David, that he submitted himself to God and he acknowledged God for every good work in his life. The person who submits himself to God is someone who cannot be moved by any force in this world, because a true believer delights in good and bad moments of his life. Verse 11. You will show me the path of life. In your presence is fullness of joy. At your right hand are pleasures forevermore. These are God's pleasures. Do you want life and joy? Here's the secret. Live on God's path. Live in His presence and live for His pleasures. Now this is the life of David. He was a true believer. That's why he delighted in God's people. He delighted in God's providence. He delighted in God's pleasures. Now, if you are a true believer, ask this question yourself. What do you delight in?